So we are going to see some dedicated blocks which is readily available in the CO site to download and use it. And this is, we are focusing some of the blocks which is more relevant in today's world, like IT/OT integration or where digitalization is more focused nowadays. So out of that, we are discussing about the blocks, say 1500 or 1200, mainly in the TA platform, where PLC need to be communicated with the SQL server or FTP server for AWS cloud, HTTPS, and Ethernet IP scanner adapter communication. And additionally, one more topic: how do we jump from WinCC to step 7? As an overview, so this will be having a more detailed demo, especially the screencast, because it is difficult to make the setup in a shorter time and give a live demo for all the topics. So we have prepared a screencast, detailed description, and maybe for guys who is not there in the programming, maybe quite boring for them. But I feel that, okay, by seeing the application where it is used, so you'll be able to make or correlate the use case from the customer or customer requirement. I think that will be able to make in the forward side or to replicate our more use case in the field. So how will be the flow? So flow will be, say, if you see that, say, communication with some third party partner or PC or whatever it is. So there will be always settings which is recorded at the partner side. Then if it is that partner is running in a PC, there will be some settings recorded at the PC side. Then finally come to our PLC side. So there will be 3 or 4 parts we categorized in this presentation. So I will be showing the detailed demo in each side, not only from our PLC point of view, but also from the partner point of view, what exactly need to be done there as a minimum point of view. But when you are expanding to in your production environment, maybe some additional settings may be required to have the more security and feature. But as a POC point of view, to check the communication connection, what are the minimum settings required, that is clearly explained. And we'll be sharing this detailed screen presentation as well as the screencast to the regional office. You'll be able to collect from them. Okay. So flow will be, yeah. So first we'll jump to the first topic, semantic solution for SQL connectivity. Okay. So to communicate with the SQL server, that is possible with the S7 1500 PLC or with S7 1200 PLC also. We can do both reading the data or writing the data with the SQL directly. So in the backend, what exactly is going to, means further session also I will not be explaining the communication protocol, or because that is a very open which is available in internet, you'll be able to see it. So if it is a SQL or FTP, I will not be explaining that, okay, what is SQL server or what is FTP server. I will not be explaining that. I will be just explaining just an outline. Okay. So when PLC need to communicate with the SQL server, the backend in the PLC, it is an open user communication will be used. So there are dedicated blocks are available in the PLC. So this is used to develop the dedicated communication blocks, which is meant for this SQL connectivity. And another main point is that none of these library blocks are protected. So in case tomorrow you feel that, okay, some kind of optimization is still possible if you want to do something, yes, that is very well possible. That can be done from our side itself or from your side itself. No need to depend upon somebody because it's a protected. No, it is not that way. Block optimization can be done by the user itself because none of the blocks are protected. Then what is the minimum requirement we are suggesting or to establish connection? If it's a 1500, this will be the minimum firmware requirement is 2.5. If it is a 1200, it is a 4.4. And SQL server should be in a properly configured condition and should be accessible to create user credential or those parts. I will be showing in a further demo. And that should be, both should be in a same subnet. And is there is any restriction? Yeah, some cases we have included the restriction part also. So we have to use the required version or higher version. Minimum required version we should use when we are testing or when you want to propose this solution to the customer side. And since it is based on open user communication, this data limit is applicable here, right? And main thing, this particular block, LSQL Microsoft block, should not be used more than one time. It should be called only once in the program. Even though if you want to do read operation, write operation, that has to be planned or programmed in a such a way that block is called only once, and you are playing around with your instruction to do read operation or write operation, right? So this is an overview. Now, what are the setting use cases? So where and all will be use this kind of, for example, because what are the application today I am showing, we got some query, maybe someone of you would have been already in contact with our team to have this kind of solution or options. So based on that, we have tried and tested. So some of the application we are listing down, and I feel that, okay, after this, seeing this session, you'll be able to expand this. You'll be having your own use case. Definitely, I feel that will be able to add up on this one, especially for IT/OT integration. And some cases, customer don't want to or don't have any SCADA solution or HMI based solution, but they want to take the data from PLC to PC and they want to do their own customized report in the SQL. So that is another possibility. And some of the database or tables are created by third-party application which is running on Java or .NET or VB. Those based of application, they're dumping that data into SQL, and but they want to have that data to be exchanged with the PLC. So some of the explain application or use cases I have mentioned here. And coming to the requirement part or settings part, what are the things need to be done? So since it is a communication between PLC and SQL, there should be some settings recorded at the SQL side. And wherever that SQL is installed in that PC side also, there should be some settings for the connectivity. And once these things are done, so definitely please check this settings are proper or not by using any third-party tool before you go to TIA portal. So at the SQL side, what are they will be required? You have to select the right SQL instance, because you know that if you are some PC, you may be having a SQL Express installed, SQL Server installed. So whenever you are declaring or defining, okay, where do you want to get the data to be logged in or read or write from? So you have to select the right instance. So further, whichever your instance you are selecting, so all the settings related to that instance to be followed in the all the area, including the PLC side, PC side, everywhere. Okay. So once the SQL instance is identified, some settings are required in the SQL side, creating the database, then creating the user, login, credential, password, then some of the user credential to be given for read write of those particular database, then creating a table in that database with the respective data types or what are the number of data you want to log or read or write. Till that will be the settings at the SQL side. So once it is done, okay, just log out and log in with your new user, whatever you have created, and cross check that, okay, it is working, okay, perfectly okay. And second thing is, okay, this SQL will be there in one PC. So definitely there will be some settings to be there in the PC side also. That also will be shown in the screencast, but it's an overview. So there will be SQL configuration settings. There we have to do some settings. Then SQL service should be in a running condition. Then for the connectivity, there should be some settings in the Windows firewall, either with the port settings or disabling the firewall in case of POC application, or if it is for actual production application, then defining some of the port number to have the communication port to be open for the PLC and SQL. Then last not but the least, please check the application. Once your things are ready, maybe just an example, you can put a node RED there and you will be getting a direct library for the SQL communication. You will be able to search from internet. So with that, you'll be able to cross check what are the user credential you have created in the SQL, what are the settings you have created in the PC. With that, you are able to read write data. Is there is any difficulty or not? Once this is tested, then you are clear that, okay, everything from the SQL side is okay. You could able to test the operation or sequence with any third-party software. In case it is not working with the PLC, you are sure, okay, I have already tested with SQL side, so more I have to focus on the PLC side. So that way you can pinpoint the issue in case there is any communication issue. Otherwise, what happens? You may not be knowing that you need to look at the SQL side or in the PLC side. So wherever it is possible, please try to use this possibility not only for this application or my presentation part, but wherever it is possible, try to use any third-party tool, check the communication before you are entering to the TIA part. So now we'll see what are the things I have shown here, how practically it looks like. So we'll just switch it to screencast. Just play this. So what I'm doing first, I'm just opening the SQL Management Studio because this is a tool to access the SQL Server in a user-friendly way. So database engine, you have to select. Then user authentication method with the username and password and the server name. So by default in your PC may not be there anything over there. So you have to select which one you want to use, either an SQL Express instance or SQL instance, what you want to use, that you have to select. You have to do the login. In case of you don't have any user credential created, you can use Windows authentication and log into that. Then there are some settings required at SQL side. Not the express type. That's why I'm doing the settings over here. But that database is there. There is already database created. It's called as 1500 SQL DB. Under that, already some tables are also there. So each property, how the action, what section properties are enabled over here, it is available here. So whenever you are doing your own project for customer requirement, you can refer this video. You can just cross check, okay, all my settings are in line or not. In case something is missing, you can correct that. So all these settings related to this is done. We will just skip a little bit. So once it is done, creating a user login, this SQL underscore 1500, it was not there. I have created. Then go to its property. Then we have to create a username and password and assign the property for this table, whatever we have created called SN1500 SQLDB. The roles I have enabled everything under user mapping, which is a SQL database 7S1500 SQLDB. This particular DB is the one I want to connect with this particular user. So this username, this DB name, all things will be used in the PLC project side also. So please cross check whatever the username and password you are created for one particular user. That user should have a all the credential, all the access to the table or whatever the database you are created. So that's what settings showing in this particular screencast. Right. So for this, all the access is done. So we have enabled this connected SQL option also, right? So all these options are done. Permissions is granted. Then we have created, shown some of the example how the table looks. Based on our requirement or based on the customer requirement, what are the data types need to be involved or what are the data need to be loaded in SQL. You have to create that many number of columns by selecting the respective data types. Okay, I have selected here, you can see, have selected real type 2, temperature 1, pressure 1, for example, batch name, timestamp with the date and time. So all these are entries in the table, and I just given the name of the table also, because this name also will be used in our PLC when we are creating SQL query to read or write the data. Okay, and this names also. So created. Okay, so just when how the table is looks like, it is having a 4 columns: temperature, pressure, batch name, and timestamp, for example. Okay, so that is done. Creation is done. Now, as I told that there will be 2 or 3 part of the settings. One is at the SQL side, means partner application side. Second thing is the PC side where this application is running. Now we are seeing the settings which is required in the PC side where my SQL is installed. So what will be the main settings? I have to do the settings. Currently this demo is based on the PLC SIM advance. And if you're having an actual hardware, you have to focus on this particular area, which is the LAN driver that PLC is talking to your PC for this SQL communication. So in my test case or my demo, I have used this PLC SIM advance. So whatever the virtual adapter which is created by PLC SIM installation, that particular IP I am focusing with, this also will be used in my further settings or in the PLC program. Okay, my IP address is 0.30. That means my PC IP address is 0.30 for my this particular demo, but in your actual case, it may be 222. Okay, so I have identified my IP address of my PLC. Now I am want to do some kind of settings in the SQL Server Configuration Manager. We just put start, and if you press SQL configuration, you'll be able to get this option. Now you'll be able to see here. I have 2 possibilities under SQL network configuration. One is a WinCC, one is a SQL Express. WinCC is nothing but my SQL server only. Other one is SQL Express. So when you have created that instance in the SQL side, right, we have browsed and selected that which database you want to use. If you have selected this SQL Express over there, all the settings in the SQL server also will be doing under this SQL Express area. All the settings in the SQL configuration manager also will be doing under SQL Express area. But in my case, I have selected the SQL server. So I will not be touching this SQL Express part because it is not relevant for me. Okay. So I want to work with SQL server area. This is my SQL server area. I have to go to this TCP IP area and IP3. Normally SQL communication with the PLC is happening in the port number called 1433. So that is kept here. And what is the IP address? My PLC is going to talk with my PC or to the SQL server. And that connectivity is a 0.30. In my case, I am doing with the PLC SIM advance. That's why I have selected the IP address related to PLC SIM advance over here. But if it is related to my actual hardware PLC, then I will be keeping a 0.222 here because my actual LAN adapter name is 0.222. And this port number is important. 1433 will be the port number which is used for the communication. And apart from this IP3 settings, there is one more setting called IP all. Here also, this TCP port you have to keep at 1433. It is also very important. Then next settings will be under SQL service. So here also you can see there are different services are running. So in case if you are using with SQL server, this service should be in running condition. Or if you are using a SQL Express instance, that state or that service should be in a running condition. That also you have to make sure. If it is not there, you can right click and bring that service into starting mode. So these are the preliminary settings for the SQL configuration manager side. So now final settings will be at PC connectivity side. So firewall. So especially when we are connecting some device to the PC, if you are in a POC application, definitely you can make your firewall totally turned off and do the testing. I will recommend this way for initially to check the communication or connection. So once it is done, then you can do the further action, something like a creating an inbound rule. Okay, so how do we create the rule? Under firewall setting, there is advanced option. So with the help of that, you will be able to switch to so advanced option. There is an inbound rule. So inbound rule, you will be able to create a policy for inbound rule, and you can assign some of the ports. So you can so you can number, and for the UDP collection or TCP connection, send the port or open this port that you can declare here, so that there will not be any blockage which is happening from the this side. Okay, the firewall side, it will be able to you will be able to keep communicating. This will not block. So these are the main settings which need to be done in the PC side, SQL side. Okay, these are the basic things. Now, what are the things need to be there in the PLC side? So PLC side, if you are already worked on this, you may be knowing that there will be normally for almost all the application example, there will be one dedicated DB for the configuration. So there will be defining the IP address of the partner, especially in my case, PC 0.30, the IP address, then database name, username, password, all those things will be configuring at a user DB. Then for the read operation and write operation, already having some know-how about this SQL, there will be some query. It's a query-based language. So we have to define some kind of or form some kind of query in a particular format to read the data or to write the data. If you want to write the data, something like insert into the data table and data format in a specific format. So this will be able to see or identify from this particular document manual. Okay. So what if you want to send a string data, if you want to send an integer data, so what data structure need to be formed, or how the spacing or how the segregation between two data type is done. So all those things are available here. So in the PLC side, and this is about the sending the data to from PLC to SQL. But to read from the data from the SQL to PLC, there is some additional tool we need to use for the one time to define, okay, what is the total data length and data size. There is something called the metadata that has to be read from the Wireshark and need to be filled in the PLC side. So PLC will be sending a query to SQL, select from, means read the data from SQL. That time your Wireshark will be running, and Wireshark will be having that response which is coming from this SQL based on my query. And by analyzing that Wireshark data, I have to collect some information from that and need to be filled in the PLC. So that will be the flow. Now we'll see how it is practically done in the PLC programming part. So we have standard library called LSQL Microsoft. So it is having input, output area, connection area, command line, data, everything is there. So now, as I described, my testing is done based on the PLC SIM advanced. So there is I have used the virtual SIM and I kept as a local. So this adapter only you have seen in my network area, and that 0.30 IP address is belongs to this particular network adapter. So I download the project into this, and there are different areas you'll be able to see. There is a enable area, connection related settings, command, trigger to send read or write boolean. Then what is the command? It's a string kind of data type. What is the command I want to send, and what is the data? Okay, and this is a DB where you are receiving or sending the data. And this command number you can see here. This is done with the indirect addressing. There is a one more tag, it is embedded here. So based on this command number, I will be able to change my array. Basically, this SQL command is an array which is having index 1 to 100, for example. Your command number is 1. So first command will be passed. If my command number is 10, so 10th command will be passed, something like that. That also we can see in the live demo. Yes. So this is the DB area where I have mentioned about the connection related parameter. There is an ID. Because it's open user communication, there will be one ID, okay, and that should be unique ID. Then hardware ID of my hardware 64 for my 1500, and partner IP address 192.168.0.30. In this case, PLC SIM advanced, this adapter name, and my port number. So 1433 is the port number which is declared, and I have done exemption for my firewall settings also, right? So this DB will be my connection DB, which is connected over my PLC block. Okay, and this is a user related credential. What is my username? What is my password? All those things are defined here. This is took from our SQL. Our first video, if you remember, SQL underscore S7 1500 was my host name, username, and password. All those things are declared over here, and server name is, this is my server name. How do I know that? If you open this SQL Management Studio in the main page itself, whatever the path you are able to browse that one or log into that one, that simply from there you can copy and paste. And what is my database name? Database is S7 1500. SQLDB is my database name. So all these informations are relevant. IP address, relevant settings are done in the PC side. All those settings, what is required in the SQL side, that also required to be used or configured in the PLC side, right? So there are some specific data types are used. I think this will be more clear when we talk about the receive data. When we want to send, for example, when an application requirement is only to send the data from PLC to SQL, you may not be worry about this particular area. This will be more relevant if you want to read something from the SQL to PLC, then Wireshark will come into the picture, then only this area will come into the picture. So till that time, we can remove that. So no need to see that. We will just see at the time of the actual testing, for example. Yes. So this is the array of the command number, whatever I was explaining, for example. So I can create an array of string, which is having a required number of entry as per my requirement or as per the customer application. So for example, command number 0. This 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, these values will be passed from another tag. So if I want to read or write, if I want to do different kinds of operation, what I can do simply, I can prepare those data or particular command in my DB, for example, and dynamically I can change this index tag. So first I will write into this, then I will read from this. So dynamically I can change this index tag. Accordingly, this particular action will be executing, and there will be one TRCV block. That particular block, a done bit, can be used in your program to identify or cross check, okay, your send receive happened properly, because you are going to get a done bit in that particular block. Okay, so this is how you will be preparing the command, like insert, select, read, write. So this is the overview for that. So SQL command is done here, and data conversion is also relevant if you want to read some data, because when you are reading the data from SQL, if it is not a string tag, for example, if you want to read a real tag from the SQL side, so that will be reading as a double word in the PLC. So once we get that information, that we have to do the swapping, because big endian, small endian, that happens in between our controller and SQL side. So once it is done, you have to do the conversion from double word to real. So this is the explanation I had done. If I want to read a real value from SQL to PLC, I have to do configure in our PLC receive area as a double word. Then I have to do the swapping. Then I have to do the conversion to real. But if you want to read just a word from that, then you just want to do the swapping functionality only. And for in the case of string operation, this kind of things are not required. You will be able to directly read the string column. For example, batch name or those kind of things you'll be able to read directly. So this is also applicable in case if you want to read some data, otherwise this conversion mechanism is not relevant. So this is a live example, for example. Not for example, this is a live example. So I have configured one watch table. In that, you'll be able to see, okay, all these relevant parameters are configured, like connect SQL and what is the status, it's a connection is done or error or busy. And all my command set is also ready to send the data into the SQL or read the data from SQL. Command set is also kept. Okay. So we'll just see. If you see here, this command number is 5. What does it mean? This command number 5, line number 17, if you are able to see, if my value is 5, this the square bracket 5, index 5 will be executed. If my value is 1, this will be executed. That is the meaning of that. So if you want to do bulk operation, read write operation, just give a first command, for example, keep the value for this index tag as 1, do the operation. You are going to get a done bit in the TRCV block. Then increment this tag to this value to 2, for example. Then trigger the write command or read command again. That way, you will be able to do bulk operation one by one automatically. Okay. So we'll just see. I have enabled this one, made true. Now connection is valid. 7002 will be able to see there. So there is a command, there is a bit here which is connected with our PLC. What I want to do here, I want to do insertion. What and all I want to insert? I want to insert a date and time, and there is some name called Apple, and there is some values, real value, 1, 2, 3 values are there. Okay, this many things I want to insert. It will not be the static value. It will be coming from some application or dynamically from the PLC side. So you have to prepare this particular format. So how do you prepare? There is option to convert into string. There is an option called concat string to form this data. Okay, with the help of those instructions, converting to the string and concatenating the string, you will be able to form this required format. Because this is a query language, so we have to form a query in a particular format so that SQL will be able to understand what exactly it is. Right? Let's go next. So I want to insert into this data. So I given the command, for example. I'm just refreshing here. So you'll be able to see here. So whatever the data I'm sending to SQL Server via Management Studio and see, okay, you are able to send the value or not. So this is also recommended before you actually do your logic part. Just cross check from watch table. Okay, it is able to read or write is accessible. You are able to send the data before going to your actual logic. Because of some logic issue also, it can happen that your query is not formed properly. So that's why you are not able to send or receive the data. So the proper form or proper query in the watch table before you are triggering or doing that automatic program from the your PLC logic. So this is also one suggestion. So this way you can do the write operation. Okay. Now I want to show how the read operation is done. As we saw that when I want to do the read operation for the first time, you should use Wireshark because some of the data need to be fetched from this Wireshark. Okay. So once you open the Wireshark, put the filter called a TDS because it's a tabular type communication method we are using with SQL and this one. So put a filter called a TDS and start recording here. Then you trigger a command from the side. So command number 3, I want to send to SQL. So it's a select LC3. LC3 is my column header from my database where my batch name. I can put a filter also. My batch name is this and my LC1. If my batch name value is Apple and my LC1 column value is this, from there you pick the value called LC3. Okay, this is the meaning. So when I'm sending this command, I may not be get this proper value directly into the PLC because there are some parameterization need to be done based on the value which is showing in the Wireshark. So once I go to Wireshark, you have to see this response area. Just click on the response area and go to the TDS. Then click on this column metadata. So from here, if you click here, you'll be able to see what is the length of this metadata. This has to be filled in the PLC DB, or we have to form an array of this particular length. Okay, so that is the important part when you want to read something. So this is the area that is used for that. You can just go to editing mode and you just adjust this parameter based on this whatever the value you have read. So in my case, it was 18 was the length. It was metadata. So I have changed metadata size to 0 to 17, nothing but 18. Right, and this token rows is based on how much number of data I want to receive. How many number of or array length I can declare the. Just we'll just cross check the result. Yeah. So I send some command. So 30.43 supposed to read. So whatever the data I am receiving, that is in a double word format, and I have done the swapping, byte swap, word swapping. Then I converted into real. So that's how I could able to get the data. Okay. So this will be the method you will be following if you want to establish a connection with the SQL side. Hope this is clear. So to summarize, you will be doing the settings at SQL side, you will be doing the settings at PC side, especially at SQL configuration part, then at firewall area, then you will be cross-checking what is IP address, those things also you need to configure in the SQL overview area. Then coming to the PLC side, when you want to write the data, you don't need to think about the Wireshark part, you need to think only about how do we form a right query into that and preparing the SQL DB where we'll be creating all the user credential, SQL related part, IP address part, all those things will be port number, everything will be declaring there. Then you are sending the data. If you want to receive the data, you will be using a Wireshark, send the query from the PLC, get the data back or telegram in the Wireshark by using the TDS as a filter protocol and see what is a metadata length that will be using in the PLC configuration. So you'll be able to write the data, and especially when you want to read the data of other than string, you may need to do some kind of swapping mechanism, because big ND and small ND matters there, because swapping is happening at the SQL side. So once we are receiving back, so we have to do swapping at our side. So hope that part is clear. And second part is about a FTP connectivity. So file transfer protocol. So there are different vendors who provide this FTP server. So in our COs, under this entry ID, you'll be able to see the blocks and which is tested and released with the Jana server and FileZilla, for example. But we were having some of the requirement. We have to communicate with the SQL server, which is Windows based. Okay, and another requirement was to communicate with the SQL server, which is over IP address, for example. Another one is a URL base. So this was the requirement over locally. It's wired connection over internet also. So by default, blocks are available in COS, which is tested with Jana server and FileZilla. So we adapted that one for the using along with the Windows based FTP server. So here also we'll be using the open user communication based in the backend. And what is the main thing? So here, if you are using a one connection ID, because open user communication in the backend, we have to give some connection ID. This connection ID plus one will be reserved internally. So if you are having some other communication is planned apart from this FTP communication, you have to spare one more ID. So for example, if you are keeping a connection ID 1 for this particular block in the DB, for example, so 1 plus 1, 2, 1 and 2, it is reserved for this. This additional one will be used dynamically. So you will be able to use from the third onwards. Okay, that should keep in mind. What is the minimum requirement of the hardware for 1500 2.0 and with 1200 4.2? Okay, but if you want to use URL based communication over IP address, then for the stable communication we recommend to use with the firmware 4.5. So we'll just see here also, whenever you are having a requirement customer, okay, can it work with the FTP server or not? Don't give a blind statement yes, because there are different FTP vendors in the market, which will basic protocol may be same, but there will be some additional settings need to be done in the FTP server side also to make it communicate with our PLC side. And under FTP itself, there are subcategories of protocols. So here we are specifically discussing about a library block which can be used for free without using any CP card on board port of the CPU. We are discussing only about that. So which is restricted with some variants of FTP connectivity or protocol that we'll see here. And what can be the use case? So for example, if a customer want to send the data from his PLC to PC in a CSV format or TXT format, he is not interested to having some visualization, something kind of that, but he just want to have some kind of data in a CSV or TXT format. So by configuring FTP server, if this FTP server is available in this PC, either in a FileZilla format or Windows based FTP format, any FTP format, definitely we need to cross check before committing to customer. But that is possible. We can send the data in a CSV or TXT format into that FTP server. Then another possibility, one of the OEM, he sent the data or his machine to multiple location. He is not interested to access the web page of PLC or SCADA and monitor in the remote, but he's interested to some critical parameter to have the improvisation in the machine. So for him also, entire all over the area wherever he sent the machine, he can establish a connectivity with his central FTP server over IP address or URL based FTP server over internet. So PLC will be able to send the data to that particular area. So OEM can do further analysis. So hopefully you also will be having some kind of requirement. Hopefully in the next session, I think we'll be having more things to fill here. So just an overview, good to know. So there are under FTP itself, there are different variants of FTP, active FTP, passive FTP, secured FTP, and SFTP. So I'm not going in detail what exactly it is, but why I told this chart will explain you why I mentioned about that. Here we are discussing only about this particular column, this last column. There is a dedicated FB block which can be worked with the 1200 and 1500 directly without using any CP card. Okay, but if you want to use with the achieve with say FTP, secure FTP communication, that is not possible with the help of the standard library block. It can act as either active FTP server or passive FTP, not server, only as a client again. It cannot act as a FTP server. It can act only as a client that either active or passive. But if customer is asking, okay, I am having one FTP server, can you communicate? Really, you should know that, okay, what mechanism they are expecting. FTP, under FTP itself, we have seen 3 or 4 variants. Under that, which one they are expecting, that should be known to you. Out of that, it is supplied or it is supported by 1200, 1500 free library. That should be taken care. Otherwise, you need to invest for the CP card. So please make sure, don't give an open statement before you test, before you cross check what exactly is the requirement. Don't give the open statement, yes, take this, it is going to work. Kindly cross check, and you can cross check with us also. We are also there to support. So here also the settings. So engineering part, again subdividing settings at partner side, setting at the PC side, setting at the PLC side. These are the sub area I want to focus, right? So there will be some settings at since here we are discussing about Windows based FTP server. So some settings will be required. How the FTP servers are created, it will be just showing as a demo because it is not available in our site, for example. And what are the permissions are required, how the things can be tested, all those things are explained here. So we'll just see here, maybe just quick demo. So one user is already created called FTP user. The permissions are given. So once it is done, you just go to your IAS manager, you can add a new FTP site, you can give the name for FTP, and whatever the data which is generating, where you want to save. That also you can select the path here. So this will be the area where you will be getting the data. So if you want to bind this particular FTP connectivity to specific to any particular port, then that can be assigned here. If you are not done this, whatever the port available for the PC, it will be able to reach here. And by default, FTP communication is happening via port number 21. So I have created as an unassigned option here. So whatever the IP address, if my laptop is having 2-3 IP address possibility, just before that, I'll be able to access this particular FTP server via any. Okay, so if you want to specifically restrict to any one of the port, for example, that can be assigned over here. And here no SSL is given. So under next, so authentication is basic authentication with the specific user, whatever I have created, I have assigned here, and it is having a both read write operation. This also can be restricted if you want to only read or write. So if it is a Windows based FTP server, so you have to go to advanced settings, and under file handling, you have to make all these things high. Then only it will be able to keep the data. Otherwise, what will happen? PLC will be sending the data. You will be able to see if you are in front of the PC, you'll be able to see just a glance. Okay, data is there, but immediately it will get deleted. So that also all things you have to make true. These things are not available in COs because this is not related to maybe our product related settings. But you thought, okay, we already struggled to identify the problem. How do we do the testing and all? That's why we prepared detailed document for you guys. So I have 2 IP address, 2 port, again PLC SIM advanced and this one. So I'm just cross checking. So what is the first option? Once your settings are done, you just want to cross check all your settings are true or not, you are able to access or not. That is, you can straight away done with the Explorer itself. So once it is, I put the FTP address over there in a specific FTP format. So I could able to access that folder with the username and password. I am able to see what is the content inside. And I'm just cross checking. I am able to create. I have a right access or not. So please cross check all those things. Once your settings is done in FTP side, you just cross check with the specific IP address through which your PLC is going to connect with. With that IP address, you are able to access that one with your user credential, whatever you have created or assigned, and you have both read write access or not, that you have to cross check. Okay. So once it is done, we recommend use any external third-party tool also and do the same thing. In my case, I have used this Core FTP, which is a FTP client software, which is available for free in, you can search in Google and get it. So with this also, I'm just cross-checking that, okay, my communication, I am able to read write data, I am able to do or not, I'm just cross-checking, verifying, okay, all my settings related to FTP server and PC is through. Right. So once that is settings are done, what will be other things? Then we have to do settings at the PLC side. And there are some kind of data words or number to be used in the case of FTP communication. If I'm sending the command to, means it will be creating new, I'm sending for, it will be deleting. So like that, some commands are there that has to be followed when we want to read or write the data. Then for the, if you want to communicate over URL communication, for example, as I told that it is possible over IP also, URL also, but what is there in COs, the communication via IP address. So if you want to check something with the URL address, please be in touch with us. We have a library block which is not published in COs. We can share that one. And if it is over internet connectivity, settings remain similar for the both IP base or internet or locally, but apart from that, you will be doing additional settings related to DNS server. Okay, and if it is over URL, at the end of the URL, you have to put one dot, then only your QDN or that qualified domain name address will be treated as a proper name by the PLC. So this is a settings need to be done in the PC side, for example. So here also we have to prepare the data in a specific format, and we have to do the serialize the data. So already sample instructions or things are readily available, and this FTP command is this particular block is used. So here also my demo is using with the help of PLC sim advance. So whatever the data I want to send, I am preparing. So here also IP address related to partner is given in the configuration DB. So hardware ID, all those things are given here, for example. Then here we can see here, I'm having a two command, request number 1 or 2. So based on that, I'm just changing the data type also. I'm just showing in this demo, I'm sending both CSV data as well as the TXT data. So if my request number is 1, I will be sending a CSV, for example. If my request number is 2, I'll be sending the TXT file. Okay, that way it will be shown. That also can be defined or designed dynamically. And your data type can name that can also can be dynamically. So just tried connected. So whatever the data I'm sending from the PLC that is available here, it is created in the .csv format. Okay. So data is available there. And if you want to append the data, if you're already having file available there, you want to keep appending the data, new data. If you want to put in the same file, you have to keep the command as a 6 and again keep sending. So it will be writing a new value, means old value will be already there, it will be keep appending. But if you want some point, if you want to delete or if you want to create new file, everything can be done with the help of this particular command values. Okay. So you can see here CSV is also there. Then TXT I'm sending now. So TXT got generated. Now with the help of value 6 in the command number, I'm just appending the data. So I'm triggering the sending command again. And if you go to SQL server, sorry, not in SQL server, here so we can see here that data size got increased because I return or send the data multiple times. So under FTP server, we'll be able to see data set itself is increased. You will be able to see the entire data over here. Okay. And in the case of URL based connection or internet based connection, additionally we'll be connecting the DNS server. If you are having in your architecture dedicated DNS server, we can put that. But what we tried with open DNS server with the Google, so that was one of the application example done for tested for one of the customer URL based. So here instead of IP address as a connection partner, we will be creating the URL address. Okay, and at the end there will be some dot should be kept. And here also you can use our FileZilla or any FTP client software to cross check whatever the data we are sending from here, it is really reaching there or not. That also can be cross checked. Okay, so this library block I was only mentioning that it is over URL address. So you can contact us in case it is you feel that okay for this particular customer that is relevant. So whatever we have seen, Windows based FTP server we have seen over IP address. So settings at the FTP server side, then settings at the PLC side, then before going to the PLC configuration, testing the FTP server via Windows Explorer itself in case we are using a Windows based FTP server, then checking the communication with any FTP client software like Core FTP or FileZilla FTP, that also we have seen. And in the live demo, we have shown how do we do the required settings at the PLC DB, how do we form the required data to be sent. There is a string operation that you have to put in a particular format and send. So that's how this data is prepared, and with the specific command line that will be able to send, delete or read or whatever the operation you want to do, that can be done. And main thing, only active FTP and passive FTP only supported with this particular library block. If you want to have other variants, then definitely you should go with the standard solution by using a CP card. Okay. So now third possibility by using a MQTT connectivity. So here required firmware is with 1500 2.0 or 1200 with 4.4 or above. It is possible with the CP card also. So here in the possibility to create a MQTT communication between a client. So whatever the here PLC, which is acting as a client, it will be talking to a broker. So in the mechanism is something like a communication is between a client and a broker via pub sub method, publish and subscription method. They'll be exchanging the data. So here also in the backend, so it is a possible to do the communication with the encryption. So here in the example, we are showing the communication with the AWS cloud. How, what are the things need to be taken care of the AWS side, the PLC side, in the PC side. So apart from that, if you want to check the communication with the, any local broker, for example, Mosquito, that is also possible. So in that case, you may not need to do much settings because it is more or less easy. So since we want to do more things in the AWS side, so that is also prepared in detail. Screencast, okay, what are the things need to be done in the AWS side? So once it is done, what are the steps to be followed before you coming to the PLC side? So what can be the use case here? Customer want to monitor the data because it's a cloud connectivity. Wherever he is, irrespective of his location, he can monitor the data. And he want to control, yes, both are possible, but we don't recommend to control some kind of critical operation if it's from the remote, because we don't know in case of connection breaks, internet issue and all, is it may create some other issue. So we don't recommend to do the critical control from the remote, but as a feature wise, possibility wise, it is possible. And cloud based analytics, once you have the data in the cloud platform, yes, that also can be thought of. Then settings at AWS side, we have to create thing at AWS. Then we have to create a policy. We have to create a or download a required set and assign the certificate to policy. Some settings required at AWS side, for example, and we have to get the domain name or qualified domain URL address. You have to copy from the AWS side. So once AWS side settings are done, please check the connection with the AWS. Reading and writing the data is happening or not by using any third-party tool. In my demo, I have used Mqtt Explorer software, which will be acting as a client. AWS is a broker. So I'll be just cross-checking, okay, data read write is happening properly or not, so that I'm sure that settings at AWS side is true. Before coming to the PLC side, here in AWS, you are going to get some of the certificates, which will be giving a token to the PLC talk with this particular instance of AWS, this TLS-based communication. So, but PLC will not be able to accept all those certificates in a same manner or same way or same format. For that, we need to prepare certificate called in a format called PTOL by using the certificate what is already downloaded, right? So that procedure also is not inside the TA portal, that is outside TA portal. So this PTOL certificate need to be created. That also will be shown by a tool called OpenS. There will be different tool, but I have used this OpenSSL tool to prepare the PTOL certificate. So once this is done, the CA certificate and the PTOL certificate need to be imported into the PLC project, and there are some configuration need to be done in the PLC based on your cloud side settings. Okay, so here also data has to be prepared in a specific format to send or receive. So just a quick overview. This is for the AWS. I am having a one dummy account over there. So there I have created things. Okay, then declared and created the policy. Then I have downloaded the certificate, public key, private key, and CA certificate downloaded from there. All downloaded and kept ready in the side. Then I go into the policy, and for this, I have attached the policy there. So all the settings required, this is done. I'm not showing in detail, but it's available in the screencast. When your use case comes, definitely you can refer this entire video. So detailed explanations are given there, steps are given there. So once it is done, what is the first point to check? Use any third-party software. Definitely it's not from Siemens. It's a Mqtt Explorer. You can download from, search from internet and get it. So this can act as a client software, and AWS is the broker. So once you are having a TLS base, means encrypted communication, port number will be 8883. If it is a non-TLS base, non-encrypted base, it will be 188 will be the communication port number used. And this ID what we got is from the AWS side. We have copied the URL address from the AWS side. So whatever the certificate we downloaded, that is straight away accepted by this particular Mqtt Explorer software. So I'm just connecting that directly here. But in our PLC case, we have to prepare a .ptol variant that is coming in the further slide. So just assigned all the certificate over here. Then I have created a topic. So here communication is happening in the base of the topic. You have to create some topics in the broker side and in the client side. So topic, if the topic is matching, then based on that topic only data exchange is going to happen, right? So I'll be able to send the data which is called as a publish. I'll be able to subscribe the data which is called as a subscription. So whatever it is sending the data from SQL, sorry, always saying about SQL, sorry for that. Whatever the data I'm sending from the AWS, I'll be able to see here. Whatever the data I'm sending from here, I'll be able to see the same thing in the AWS side also. So this way, kindly cross-check the communication. Once your AWS part is ready, make sure that you are able to read, write with by using any open software. So once that is done, next thing is what? Doing the preparation for the PLC side. For that, what is the requirement? We have to prepare the P12 certificate. For that, whatever the certificate is used, that is used. Means we got from the AWS, that is used. And there are some command lines are used to prepare the certificate. And you can download this particular OpenSSL software from the link that is also given in this one. So from there, you can download and install. So once you install this OpenSSL.exe software, that will be available under your installation path, for example. Yes, in this particular path, once you install this software, it will be available over here. So under this particular program file 86 GNU Win32 bin OpenSSL.exe is available. This you have to use and you have to prepare the data, whatever the license or whatever the keys we have downloaded. You have to prepare the command line by using the name of this particular keys over here, then copy paste over there and generate the data. Okay. So I just copied and pasted everything over here. It is asking for the password or not. It is required a password or not. I created without password. So you can see here. So P12 certificate got generated. So whatever the certificate which was we downloaded from the AWS side, by use from out of that we made a P12 certificate. Now in the PLC, now we will be using this P12 certificate and this CA certificate. Okay. So since it is a SSL based communication, sorry, TSL based communication, you should protect your project by using a password, then only will be able to import your certificate. That also will be seeing in the further part. So now once your project is or certificate part is ready, now TA portal definitely will be a project. Once you come to the, trying to access this certificate, will be asking you to create a username and password for your project. So your project will be protected. Then only will be having access to this particular area. So under particular this trusted certificate area, you are going to import your certificates, right? So you are going to import both of the certificate here. One is a P12 certificate, one is a CA certificate. Yeah, so CA certificate and P12 certificate is imported under this trusted certificate area under TA portal, which was downloaded from AWS and prepared by using an external tool. So once it is done, so since it's a communication is via SSL base, so certificate need to be assigned in the PLC hardware configuration also, and this number need to be noted down. So this 37 or 38, whatever the number you are currently seeing in the screen, that also need to be noted down. So this is in the hardware configuration. Initial part under common data, the certificate management is done under the project. Now that whatever is certificate is available in that area, I am bringing into my specific hardware, because whatever the CPU available, hardware available in my project tree, anybody can access that particular certificate. So we have to specifically define, okay, this particular CPU want to access to this particular certificate. So it is having that authentication token available. So I have assigned that one over here. Then preparing the DB, for example, by putting the QDN address which we received from this AWS side, we copied from there. Then port number, putting the client ID, username, and there is no username and password. So all these topics, topic for the sending, topic for the receiving, how much number of data we want to send, all those things we are declaring here. Okay, so that is done there. Yeah, the certificate number also is assigned over here. Broker certificate number and client certificate number also assigned over here. This is from where you got that. This is from our hardware configuration screen. When you imported the certificate in the project, from project to hardware configuration, there this number will be available. That has to be configured in the configuration DB. So once this is done, then DNS settings in the PLC side. Then we'll see the some demo maybe quickly. So here also I have prepared some data because I want to send data as a real type. So I have converted into string and prepared my data whatever need to be sent. There is a LMQTT client library blocks are available. So, and this communication is over internet. I'll just straight away go to demo. So there is a publish and subscription option. If you are clicking publish option, I will be able to send the data. Whatever the data I'm sending from my PLC, you'll be able to see under the same topic. You have to put the same topic, then they'll be able to see the data over there. So I change the value from 0 to 20.36 and publishing. So if I go to AWS, that value will be able to see in there. So similar way, whatever data I'm sending from AWS side, that will be reflecting here. But what is the one condition? This subscribe bit should be enabled. Then you'll be able to receive the data. Whatever the data you are receiving will be in a ASCII format. You have to do the conversion to get your proper data structure. Okay. So these things are explained there. So hope it is clear. So settings at AWS side, then creating the things, creating the password, policy, assigning the policy, everything is explained there. Then getting the certificate, or download the certificate from there, get the QDN or address from there. And there also under test area, we'll be using this topic to see the data, to send the data, to test the communication. Then coming to the PLC side, we'll be creating this petrol certificate out of by using any third-party tool. I have used OpenSSL. Then importing this CA certificate and petrol certificate into PLC in a certificate manager, global certificate manager. Once it is done, that can be imported into your PLC hardware configuration. Note down all these numbers of broker, client certificate and all that has to be configured in the DB, and sending and receiving the data by using a dedicated library block that has to be prepared in a dedicated format, and by using a sub trigger bit, you'll be able to send or receive the data. Okay, so similar way is that is for the AWS communication with the PLC or MQTT. This is for HTTP communication with 1500. It is not yet supported with or not released with 1200. So this is also possibility is possible for the having a secure communication by using a certificate. But there is a short demo which is based on our application example in COS, which is done because I don't have any HTTP server to check the actual communication with. So we have used the same server address, whatever it is given in our application example. Okay. So especially it will be used for IT/OT integration, and I think for some of the warehouse management also this will be relevant nowadays. Some of the OEMs are asking to get the data or exchange the data via HTTP communication. So since the communication is via internet, DNS addresses are given. Okay, and how do we get the blocks? There are library blocks are available in COS that has to be imported into your global library area, then drag and drop into your project. So this is available in a project. And along with that, data types also will be created automatically, right? So once it is done, so I just want to show how get works or how the push or post works. Okay, so for that basic hardware configuration part or ID part is already done by referring to the required document. And here URL address. This is supposed to be the actual URL in case of application customer requirement. This URL details has to be provided by the customer based on their HTTP server. So in our case, we were not having an HTTP server to try with. So this is the HTTP server address, URL address, which is given in our document, COS document. So we also use the same thing to cross check. Okay, is there is any hurdles to check with or not? Okay, so we just prepared all the blocks, relevant blocks, and we are just trying to send data, receive the data. Okay, this is the document what I was referring with, which is given in that ID also, and here also this URL address is given. If you want to try locally, not locally, means without depending upon the customer server, then this can be used. So using this, and whatever the data you are sending from here, you can use a Postman, for example. That is also client tool. By using that, you can cross check that whatever data we are sending that is received there or not. That also can be done. Okay, so here, but I'm just saying the get option. So whatever the URL address is given in the manual, if I open this directly, this will be the data there. Okay, so when we are trying to read this data from this particular URL, so all these things will be populated in our DB, receive DB. Okay, so that also we can just see here. So right side we can see the receive DB. So from here we are getting the data. So you can see here ARGS, all this data you will be able to see here. Okay. So same way while sending the data also, we are posting the data to the same URL, but unfortunately there is no provision to cross check the data. Whatever we are posting, we are not able to access that. So it's difficult to show for me also in live. Okay. So, but just understand that there is HTTP or HTTPS communications are supported by PLC 1500 without using additional hardware, and the security communication also possible. When you are talking about the security communication TLS based, always the certificate manager, importing certificate, assigning the certificate to the controller, all these things will come into the picture, which is already shown for this AWS part. Okay. So now something little different topic. What is the Ethernet IP communication between our PLC and with the third-party devices? So here also, once you get a requirement from the customer, don't give a blind approval. Kindly get the EDS file from them, from the partner device, from the partner vendor, and share with us. We can cross-check and confirm. Okay, this communication can be established or not, because this is not a hardware feature like our Profibus or Profinet. This is developed based on communication blocks only. Again, based on open user communication, the backend, some of the blocks. So don't give a blind statement. Yes, it is supported. Definitely it is supported, but case to case, we should cross check the feasibility. Okay. So in case of, if you want to terminology, there is something called a scanner, there is something called adapter. Scanner is nothing but, in the case of Profinet, is called as a controller, or is a master in the case of Profibus. And in the adapter, slave devices are called as a terminology says like a adapter. So if PLC is acting as a scanner, for example, it will take one TCP connectivity and one UDP connectivity. Okay. And if it is a adapter device, PLC can act as adapter also. It will take two resources. So when, if you are thinking about a more number of connection, you should have able to understand, okay, how many number of resources will be required to have the communication. So if I am having one scanner and it has to communicate with the two devices, two adapter, then it will be required three resources. Number of devices, that many number of TCP resources, and one common shared UDP resources for all the connectivity. Okay. And what is the minimum requirement of hardware software is given here. And there are two dedicated sample library blocks are available to act as a scanner as well as the adapter. Entry ID is available here to download along with the application example. So what is the main advantage here? Definitely, there is no specific hardware to be used. It can be used by onboard, but yes, there will be a little effort, as I told that, because this is achieved by a programming, not by using any coupler or those kind of devices. It is a purely software solution. So what will be the settings required? Definitely you should get the EDS file like our GSD or GSDML file. For the Ethernet IP, EDS file will be used. We have to get the EDS file from the vendor or from your customer, and please share with us. We can cross check and confirm with the help of Germany that, okay, how easy that to communicate with our PLC. And EDS file can be opened with a notepad. So by using the configuration part, we'll be opening with a notepad, and there will be relevant information which need to be filled in the configuration DB. Okay. So we'll just jump to the configuration part. So here we were not having any third-party hardware with us to check the communication. So we have used one 1200 PLC, one 1500 PLC. One will act as a adapter like a slave. One will act as a scanner, for example, as a master. So we are showing the communication between these two devices only, our devices only, Siemens devices only, but by using a scanner and adapter library blocks. Okay. So this is a block for the scanner. There is enable bit. Like that for the adapter also, there is a blocks are available. Okay. Both should be in the same IP class. Okay, these are two blocks. One is for scanner, one is for adapter. Okay. So this is the input output area where you want to get the data, for example. So simply array what kind of data type you want to receive, that you have to declare that. And in the scanner set. So scanner is something like a master device. So scanner will be having a more settings from which scanner or which adapter it has to get the data. There will be having a more settings in the scanner side. Adapter side, comparatively very less information or data will be there. Like they have to just prepare the data what to be sent and make that DB available. Second thing, you should have that adapter ka block, and that should be in enabled condition. This only will be required at the adapter side, since we are talking about our controller. But in the case of in the actual case, maybe adapter may be from the third party. So we have to get the EDS file. EDS file will be having almost all this information what need to be filled in the DB, that has to be filled, right? So partner IP address, and vendor ID, product type, all those information will be available in the EDS file of the partner. In case of they want, if Siemens is going to act as a adapter, so from our EDS file need to be shared with the partner, they will be getting all those information from our EDS file. Okay, and this point identifier and size and this interval is a main parameter. This also can be read from the EDS file. This has to be configured. This is a very important parameter. Identification is more challenging. Okay, and as a terminology wise, it is little different. I will just show the data exchange part. Yeah, so here is the so here is the actual data exchange demo. For example, left side you will be able to see the scanner block, right side you are having an adapter block. Both has to be enabled to have the data exchange between these two. One is a 1500, one is a 1200. Okay, so all the data preparation is done to send or receive data. Okay, and in the partner PLC, means in the scanner PLC kept all the related information we already see. How many data need to send, receive, all those informations are kept there. Then jump to watch table. So right side you'll be able to see the scanner, left side you are able to see the adapter. Right here, difference is that whatever the data is there in my output will be reflecting in the output over here. It's not like output to input, input to output. Terminology is little different. Okay, so whatever the data scanner is sending, that has to be configured at the output, and that will be reflecting at the output area of the adapter, not at the input area. Similar way, whatever the data is available at the input of the adapter, that will be read at the input area of the adapter. Right? So output to output I will be writing, scanner will be writing, scanner will be reading. Output to output will be writing, input to input will be reading. Okay, this is how it is going to work. Standard library blocks are available in COs. So what are the things need to be taken care when you are checking with EDS Ethernet IP communication? Definitely you should cross check. You should get a EDS file. You should cross check with our team. We can check with the Germany in case of support required. That feasibility and how difficult or how easy it is. Then based on that, we have to configure the DB file. So you have to get one more information. Our controller is going to act as a scanner, means master, or an adapter as a slave. So this many information will be required in prior before committing. Okay, this is possible or not. So this information you can share with us. We can cross check, and there are dedicated library blocks are available for the acting as a both a scanner as well as the adapter. Okay. So now this will be our last point. So jumping step 7, jumping to step 7 from WinCC. So from the WinCC, from the older version itself, there are feature or facilities possible. Maybe with a button click, directly operator can jump from his mimic screen to your semantic manager screen. So what is the useful? So somebody, if already knowing that pro diagonal, it is not that much extent intelligent, because it is directly jumping to the particular network or area in the PLC program part, which is already predefined at your engineering time, right? It is not, or it may not be useful at the position where you are having an error and click on that error, just jump to the or see the ladder. It's not that way. For that, we have separate tool, pro agent, separate tool is available for WinCC. But this will be relevant where you want to jump. Operator may not be having much knowledge about how do we open semantic manager, how do we go to cross reference, how do we check, may not be having much information, and operator access to the semantic manager to have be in a read-only mode. He's not be able to download, he's not be able to do any modification. So that also can be achieved with the help of this. And this is there in many years. It is nothing new, but I hope that many of you guys are also not aware about this. Just thought, okay, how do we will give you some idea about this. So what is the main important or requirement for this? Semantic manager and WinCC classic platform only it is available. Project should be integrated, and in the WinCC PC your semantic manager should be there. Then only all those things are possible. Okay, and this is the help file or the configuration help file. It is given here. What is the method? It is given. Okay, and not only into the network part, operator can directly jump to the hardware configuration window also from the WinCC directly. Now we'll just see about the live demo. Before that, what can be the user use case? So faster troubleshooting, because operator no need to depends upon the expertise person who is factory to come with semantic manager laptop, connect and check. Operator can basic troubleshooting he can do by seeing okay which input is missing or not something, and it is really possible to get that block opened in a read-only mode so that there is no tension or the problem of overwriting something. That is also can be achieved with the help of this. So a live demo, for example. So my PLC project is there. It's a 7300A configured. It's a WinCC. This is it. I have created a connection in the network. This connection is made between PLC and CC. And just to show how the programming like your standard way of doing the and here tag table the PLC in prior. That is the main thing. So once it is done, just compile the PLC WinCC project as like any other integrated project. Nothing new there also. So okay. So once it is done, go to the WinCC part. So I'm just cross-checking that okay, what are the tags currently available in the WinCC? Okay, I'm having this many tags: lamp, start, stop. There are many, some tags are already there in the WinCC. So just open. So there are three buttons. One button is check lamp logic. It's already configured. Now I'm going to check heater logic. So I'm having some output for the heater, for example, Q0.0, for example. I want to cross-check that okay, wherever it is used. If it is not working, I will be clicking this button. I will go relevant area and see okay, that output is coming or not, or which input is missing. For that, we have a option. Dynamic wizard option is there. Under dynamic wizard, there is something called network entry point. So you can run this wizard. Here, one or two parameters need to be configured. So in this particular window, you have to select the text tool and the tag name, which tag you want to monitor. Okay, tooltip, not text tool. It's a tooltip. So you have to select the tooltip text over there, and under parameter, you can browse that tag which is already there in the WinCC, for example. Otherwise, you can enable this symbol server from the semantic manager, and that will be able to browse directly from here. So that tag also will be getting generated automatically in the WinCC. This connection also will be made. So now I want to monitor the tag Q00 and its name is heater. So I'm just browsing that. Okay, I just selected that, just put OK and just finish the wizard. And in the PLC side, you will be able to see I noted completed my wizard. So before that, if you see this operator controller and OCM parameter, this heater is not having a OCM parameter enabled at the moment. Okay, so now I will be going back to WinCC and finishing my wizard. Move to WinCC, moving to WinCC configuration window again. So I selected this. Okay, finish. And okay, here you can define you want to do with the authorization or without authorization. If you are not doing without, if you are doing selecting this without authorization, that means that whoever is jumping, it will not be checking what is the current user logged into the PC. It will be having a both read, write, download, upload, whatever the access he want to have, he will be having that access. Or if you are using with a specific functionality, that can be restricted. This was the mentioning that read-only mode can be opened. So this wizard is completed. Okay, saved. So go on to symbol table. Now you will be able to see that particular heater is got this OCM parameter enabled. Why? Because I have access this from the WinCC and this tag got created here. It's not manually created. So that's why it is showing that symbol OCM parameter over there. Now we'll see how it works in the practical case. For example, you will be having some screen, mimic screen, you'll be having some alarm. You got an alarm called, okay, heater is not turned on or heater faulty, something like that. Then you can click on this heater logic button. Then it will jump to semantic manager directly. You can see what actually is going to happen there. Click on this. So if it's used many places, if this particular output heater Q0.0 is used multiple places, it will be giving a prompt like our go-to location, which is there in the semantic manager. You can select which area you want to monitor. Okay, so you can even go one by one also. Just selected this OB1 or FC1 where I selected this FC1. Okay, so it is just jumping the, see straight away got open here under network 3. So if I am clicking the OB1 and clicking on this go to, just click selected corresponding area. So operator can monitor also, see what exactly is going to happen there. Even if I am keeping all my semantic manager instances in a closed condition, still that is possible. I closed everything in the semantic manager. Okay, you can see in the my taskbar there is nothing, semantic manager is open. Then clicked here. I clicked this particular call area, for example. Again, it open the semantic manager. You can see in the tab, only semantic manager is got open. Sorry, only this particular ladder window got open. Semantic manager as a software is not open. Okay. You can do monitor everything you can do. Okay, if it is without authorization, you can do download, upload, those things also possible. So apart from that, what is another possibility? Okay, so I click on this lamp logic. So that is used only one place in the logic. Okay, that's why it was not given a go to prompt. If it is used multiple places, it will be giving that prompt. Now, when I want to switch it to hardware configuration, that is also possible. How do we do that? You will be running the same wizard. Once you are running the wizard, it will be creating one script internally into that button. Just do the same procedure for the new button also. If you want to jump into the hardware configuration screen, then just change this parameter to some other parameter. That also will be shown here. The hardware configuration screen. This button is prepared by putting the same parameter. Okay, with the same method, same wizard, but that first instance is changed to get hardware diag. Okay, so older one, whenever you are running the wizard, something was created already, remove that and put get hardware diag. So what happens with that? So once it is done, if you click on that, it will be opening the hardware configuration screen directly in online window. Okay, so this will be able to go to diagnosis buffer, or you can see that I used remote IO status and all. You will be able to see in detail, and diagnosis can be done over here.